One of the showrunners of the modern Doctor Who era, Stephen Moffat, said that the companions were the protagonists of the story. He stated, "It's always their story. The story begins again, not so much with the new Doctor, but with the new companion. The Doctor is the hero, but they're the main character." Although Moffat has said some questionable things about Doctor Who during his time as showrunner, he's also written some great episodes for the show, like Blink, which barely featured the Doctor. But his perspective got me thinking. I mean, stories are usually told from a certain perspective, and usually in epics or adventure tales, the audience experiences the story through the perspective of the hero, the character who goes on the hero's journey and acts as the central character of the overarching story. These characters are designed to conquer the opposition, get the love interest, and bask in their glory, remembered for generations to come. Think Harry Potter, The Matrix, Star Wars, Percy Jackson, Kung Fu Panda, The Lego Movie, Avatar: The Last Airbender, Horizon Zero Dawn. I could keep going, but this list would never end. Telling stories from the perspective of the hero archetype or the chosen one is the norm, but what about stories from a different perspective? Ones where the protagonist is not the one destined for greatness or heroics. Let's consider Wildstyle from the Lego Movie. She deep down wanted to be the special, but it ended up being Emmett, the protagonist.
I wanted it to be me, okay? I wanted to be the special.
Had she been the protagonist of the movie, it certainly would not have been as exciting as Emmett's perspective, but it is still an interesting one. Accepting that she is a supporting character here is integral to her character development. With this in mind, I set out to find media where the protagonist plays a supporting character in the greater plot, yet takes up a majority of the runtime. This is called the supporting protagonist, and usually they fill in an archetype other than the hero. The mentor, the villain, the fool. Take Pirates of the Caribbean, for example, where Jack Sparrow is the main character throughout the series. He takes up the greatest screen time, but in the first movie, the story really revolves around Will and Elizabeth as their lives get tangled in piracy and adventure. The movie literally starts and ends with them, but perhaps Pirates is more of an ensemble story, where finding a true protagonist in the tale is more difficult since every character shares an equal role in the story. Like The Phantom Menace, where Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi are seemingly the protagonists of the film. They have the longest screen time and arguably go through character development, but in the grander scheme of things, they are irrelevant compared to Anakin. He has great importance in the larger story at hand, but not really for this movie. He's not the protagonist here. We don't even meet him until 30 minutes of the film. But Star Wars is and has always been an ensemble franchise. There's no one true protagonist. They all share the spotlight. I have, however, identified 3 pieces of media that contain the supporting protagonist trope, and each story seems to offer a unique perspective on what it means to accept that this is not your story. Mad Max Fury Road opens with the titular character and the protagonist of the film, Max. He narrates and carries most of the film's screen time.
Here they come again, worming their way into the black matter of my brain.
But his role in the story is quite tame. His goal, to escape, has nothing to do with Immortan Joe and Furiosa's rescue mission. He's really a passive character in the story, just experiencing event after event and doesn't even really want to help Furiosa, the real hero here. But he does help them throughout the movie, involuntarily. He doesn't really want to do it, but he has to. However, there comes a point, and this happens with every supporting protagonist, where they must decide on how they will contribute to someone else's story. Max gets caught up in Furiosa's grand escape and rescue plans and reaches a personal climax when he's reminded of a time when he chose not to help.
You promised to help us.
It's what's been haunting him throughout the whole film, and it will keep haunting him unless he makes an active choice here. This whole time, Max has been running away and avoiding taking any role or stance in this plot. He never does what's best for anyone else, just himself. That is until he realizes he can do both. He helps plan a takeover of the Citadel and saves Furiosa's life in the end, ultimately absolving his own conscience and guilt. In this story, Max accepts his role as supporting protagonist, but he doesn't stay. He doesn't embrace it and join Furiosa in the Citadel. Max moves on because this is just a step on his path. He decides this is not his story, just a chapter of it. Cars 3 opens with the titular character and the protagonist of the film, Lightning McQueen. He narrates and carries most of the film's screen time.
I am Speed. One winner, 42 losers. I eat losers for breakfast.
In this film, Lightning takes the lead once again in the Cars franchise as he joins another race, hoping to keep adding wins to his win streak. However, he quickly is overshadowed by the new, young, sleek, somewhat sexy racer Storm. And in a risky attempt to hold his title, he crashes and stops racing for the next few months. When he decides to start training again, he's rusty, he's old, and he's struggling to keep pace with the modern training that young Cruz Ramirez puts him through. He's not meant for this life anymore, it's clear, but he doesn't want to give up. He starts training with Cruz and teaches her how to race properly. They go through a trial by fire together, literally, and we learn that Cruz has always wanted to race. She just never believed in herself enough.
That I didn't belong. The other racers looked nothing like me. You know, they were bigger and stronger and so confident.
They eventually meet up with Doc Hudson's mentor, Smokey, who is Lightning's grand mentor, I guess, who helps train Lightning and Cruz. During their training, Smokey shows Lightning how Doc found a new purpose once he stopped racing, in training Lightning. So when the final race begins, Lightning realizes that this is not the role he's meant to play here. Instead of being the hero, he is meant to set up the real hero of the story, Cruz. And that's exactly what he does as he takes a pit stop and tags her into the race, allowing Cruz into the spotlight for once and giving her a chance to shine. This is the climax of Lightning's character development. He takes a step back and decides to contribute to Cruz's story rather than serve his own. By embracing his role as a supporting protagonist, Lightning reconciles his feelings of self-doubt and finds purpose in other ways than just winning the race, just like his former mentor. He decides this is not his story, and he's okay with it. At the beginning of The Last of Us, we are introduced to Joel and his daughter Sarah, and within the first several hours of the apocalypse, Joel tragically loses his daughter. Several years later, he is assigned the task of escorting 14-year-old Ellie across the country. Joel initially accepts this role as mentor and guide because his story is technically over. It's been over 20 years since he lost his world. In a way, this story is really all about Ellie. Being immune to the virus means she is the key to ending the apocalypse and saving the world. But she's not the protagonist here. Although we do play as her briefly, we play as Joel for most of the game. And while Joel initially treats Ellie as just another package to deliver, he eventually sees her as his own daughter as he slowly reactivates his protective and father-like nature. By the time they reach their destination, Joel has fully embraced his role as the mentor in this story. That is, until he realizes that she's going to die from the surgery that will extract the cure from her. This is where Joel reaches the climax of his character development, but unlike Max or Lightning, Joel rejects being a supporting protagonist. This is meant to be Ellie's ending, but Joel intervenes. He makes the selfish choice of killing Marlene, the Fireflies, and the Doctor, ultimately rescuing Ellie. This whole time, Joel hasn't minded being a supporting protagonist, but that was apparently conditional on Ellie's survival. Because when it comes down to it, instead of giving Ellie her story, he takes it into his own hands and makes it about him. Joel decides, no, this is his story. It didn't matter how the supporting role was given to these characters, whether it was a natural next step for them or a result of chance, they all decided to handle it differently. Where Max felt reluctance to accept this role, Lightning took it in full stride. Where Lightning showed no hesitation in stepping away from the spotlight, Joel showed no hesitation in stealing it. Having a supporting character be the protagonist in a story is usually utilized to make storytelling come naturally to the audience. Consider Sherlock Holmes, where using a supporting character like Watson as your audience point of view means that we are learning about the world and its characters at the same time as Watson. But using a supporting protagonist also raises an important question. What does it mean to accept that this is not your story? That you are really not the important one after all? The reason why so many stories exist with the chosen one trope is because everyone wants to feel special. Everybody wants to feel that the world revolves around them in some way, that the universe is not random, that the world has not forgotten them, that destiny is already written. It brings a sense of comfort. However, not being the protagonist is a reality everyone faces. No one is truly so special that the fate of the world revolves around them, but that doesn't mean our role as a supporting character is not important. Often these are the overlooked characters in media. The hero never would have been ready had the mentor not prepared them for it. The detective never would have been able to solve the case had the assistant not helped them. Main characters need their supporting characters, otherwise there might not even be a story. These stories, Mad Max, Cars 3, The Last of Us, offer a chance to highlight these supporting characters and their importance in plots greater than them. Not all of them accept their role, but that's kind of the point. They are still protagonists. Just like Lightning, you can take an active part in helping someone grow. Just like Joel, you can prioritize your own story over someone else's if you desire. Just like everyone else, destiny written or not, your story is truly in your hands. Supporting protagonists are still protagonists. Their influence on the story is up to them, and your influence on your story is up to you. Or maybe I'm coping because I've had to accept my role as a supporting character ever since I got a cat, because he thinks he's the real hero. Let me know in the comments if you know more stories with supporting protagonists, and don't forget to subscribe. It would mean a lot to me and this guy, but no pressure. Thanks.